대한민국을 넘어 세계로 뻗어나가는 것이 진정한 오픈 이노베이션이 아닐까요? 오픈 이노베이션의 마지막 세션은 글로벌 기업의 오픈 이노베이션, 세계로 뻗어가는 혁신을 들어보실 수 있습니다. 루이스 디젤 디렉터 오브 에이시아 스타트업 Junkie, 라이언 선 매니징 디렉터 Rakuten Symphony 싱가포르, 줄리안 클라우스 헤드 오브 테크놀로지 오피스 코리아 BMW, 앨런 장 CEO 빔 무대로 모시겠습니다.
Okay, how's everybody doing? Good to see you guys. So my name is Louis Diesel. As I was introduced, I'm the director for Asia for a company called Startup Junkie. Startup Junkie operates accelerators and VC funds, and we're targeting enterprise B2B software companies. So we have testing partners like Walmart, Tyson, JB Hunt, a lot of large enterprises based in the US. And we help Korean startups, Asian startups, any startups in the world. We provide them with testing opportunities for large enterprise clients. And then if the testing opportunities become successful, we'll also invest in a lot of those startups. So thank you guys for joining us today. We have a really solid crew here with us, and I'd just like to introduce them really quickly before we start our open innovation session. So, right now to the left of me, we have Ryan Sun, who's the managing director of Rakuten Symphony. And then to the left of Ryan, we have Julian Klaus. He's the head of technology for BMW Korea. And then to the left of Julian, we have Alan Jiang, who is the CEO of Beam, the mobility solutions company. So starting with Ryan, if we could just have a really quick introduction about who you are and a very simple statement in terms of what your department is focused on, or how, what are your main goals?
Sure. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Everyone seems angry a little bit. I hope it's okay. My name is Ryan Son. I'm heading up operations and business in Rakuten Symphony, Singapore, Korea, and I'm also leading a business division in Rakuten. My journey of open innovation, global open innovation, started at EastMop, a Korean startup, my own company. The entity was established in 2012 and was acquired by Rakuten in 2021, just a little over two years ago. And before the acquisition, even after the acquisition, we developed a couple of products called Send Anywhere, a file transfer service, and Sendy, now rebranded as Rakuten Drive. And the two services collectively, we provide services to over 60 million people, users around the world. It is very nice meeting all of you, and I'm very excited to share my humble stories and experiences with you guys. And also, I would like to hear your stories. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Julian Klaus. Hello, everyone. I work for BMW. Well, our business model, I believe, is quite known. We build cars and motorcycles as well, of course. And I'm the head of the technology office of BMW here in Korea, which means we're responsible for the open innovation activities of BMW, bringing technology from Korean startups, from Korean companies, also from Korean researchers into BMW's own R&D processes and to the entire rest of the BMW group. In particular, we have here the so-called BMW Startup Garage program. And with this program, we invite startups to become suppliers of BMW. We become their venture client, so we don't invest. And we operate POC programs, proof of concept programs, for the entire BMW group, whether it's for our products, the cars and vehicles, or our logistics, our production, anywhere where it can contribute to the BMW group. I've been living in Korea now for the past a little bit more than 10 years, and with BMW for 8 years here running the operation. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Alan. I'm the co-founder and CEO for Beam. We are Asia's largest micro-mobility operator. We're operating in 8 countries. Very excited to be in Korea, where people actually know what micro-mobility is, and kickboard sharing is very big. I spend most of my time, I guess Beam started in Singapore 5 years ago, and Singapore doesn't currently have e-scooter sharing. So it's very nice to be in a country where we can ride e-scooters around. So very excited to talk to all of you today.
Well, thank you guys for the introduction. So we're all here today to talk about open innovation, how do startups work with super large companies, super large enterprises. And so just a quick statistic, according to the Korea International Trade Association, right now there are over 100 multinational corporations that are currently working with Korean startups. And so on that note, I just wanted to ask, going down the line here, starting with Ryan, kind of what has that experience been like? How can you give some examples of how a large company like Rakuten, how do you guys scout technology? How do you guys actually evaluate that technology? And then how do you guys try to implement that technology in an efficient way?
Okay, as somebody who came from a Korean startup and now working under the umbrella of one of the biggest international companies called Rakuten, I do see a couple of very distinct characteristics of Korean startups. So even in Rakuten, I'm working with a lot of startups. For example, I'm working with this company called Alicorn. They used to do this rocket punch business, and now they have pivoted to this shared office and IoT, and Rakuten is now working with them. And by the way, if you have a chance to meet this the CEO guy, Mr. Mini Cho, I highly recommend that you do that because he's one of the smartest guy I've ever seen. So those characteristics are first agility, and second, they have great work ethic. So in other words, they work very hard with a very small number of people. That was the characteristics of EastMob, and that's also the characteristics of many Korean startups I see. But at the same time, I also agree with the survey results that many Korean startups are lacking, global expansion readiness, because I have the first-hand experience from EastMob myself. So I remember, like several years ago, I have encountered many instances where my team members, my engineers, even co-founders, they were like, whenever we had meetings, like brainstorming meetings and meetings about new features and things like that, I got this impression that they were wanting to launch these new services, features in Korea first before they feel it's completely ready for the global expansion. But if you think about it, in the startup world, the time when things are ready, it will never come. You have to just launch it first and see where you can improve and keep moving on, right? So I was, my engineers, my co-founders, I admire them so much, and I believe my engineers are the best engineers in the world. But compared to their career path, mine was a little different, right? So mine was a little more, international focused. So I was telling them that we should start from global. We should die global. Start from global, die global, rather than starting from the Korean market and see if it works for the global and then make inroads into the other markets. No, we should always start from the global. So the one thing I would like to share with all of you, especially with startup people, my humble opinion is, if you want to, go global, you have to start from global.
All right, thank you very much. And then we'll have Julian answer about how his organization operates with startups, and then after that, I'll ask Alan a different question.
All right. First of all, I can only second what Ryan said, but then again, I don't see it quite so dire, especially when I compare it to our operations in other Asian countries. I really do admire the wish of many Korean startups to want to go global, and in particular when it comes to the ease of business, doing business with Korean startups compared to some other Asian countries. I think personally it's a lot easier here for a global company like BMW to do so, or a German company. How do we find startups and work with startups? It's pull and push. Sometimes we have certain challenges in our business that come up where we say we can't solve it with our traditional means and methods. So in this case, we go out into the different markets, including here in Korea, and try to find startups or other companies that can help us solve this challenge, even if they are not yet in an automotive space. And we try to transform their business so that it fits us and fits them, so that they can grow. On the other hand, many startups reach out to us. Our startup garage manager is sitting there in the audience, Shine Kim. So if you have an interesting technology, please reach out to her directly. So we are always open to learn something new and also see that even a process that we wouldn't consider necessarily having a need to be optimized through a great solution of a Korean startup. So for us, it's both ways.
Thank you so much. Okay, so for Alan, as kind of, I guess, categorically, we could still say you're somewhat of a startup. But so on that note, what has your experience been like working with, so traditionally large Korean conglomerates, they have a unique culture. And so in terms of Beam, what kind of experiences have you had? Are there any culture clashes? Are there any interesting kind of nuances when you're working with these large enterprise and conglomerate companies in Korea? What has that been like from a cultural perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're definitely still a startup, and we try to be a startup as long as we possibly can to sort of maintain that agility and fast-moving pace. I think when we think about all the countries that we're in, we're currently operating in 8 countries, and Korea is our largest market. And so really, everywhere we go, we really have to think very deeply about how to localize and operate effectively in that country, whether that's from a regulatory perspective, technology, or even cultural, which is probably, honestly, one of the biggest ones. And what we have found is our sweet spot is actually operating as a hybrid of what is Beam's global cultural values and how does that mesh with local Korean or Indonesian or Australian or whatever countries that we're in, and how do we mesh with local cultures there? And that actually offers a very unique value proposition, because what we see is in a lot of countries, we attract talent that wants to operate in a more global mindset, but also not stray too far away from what's culturally appropriate there. And so, for example, in Korea, we have a culture that is probably more hierarchical. From a Beam perspective, I think the culture that we have in Korea is probably more hierarchical than we have in Australia, for example, but still less so than a lot of the chaebols here. And that's a good hybrid that offers something that's attractive to a certain type of people. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we talk about our culture, we talk about our brand and what it's like to work at Beam, and we attract the type of person who fits in specifically with that culture. And so I think ultimately it is finding what that right mix is. It's not necessarily fitting 100% into one box or the other box, and then owning that brand and attracting the right type of people who are attracted to that type of brand as well.
So just following up really quick. So when you're working with these large enterprises in terms of maybe a direct customer or a solutions integrator or a potential partner, from a decision-making perspective, have you had any issues? What kind of issues have you had or challenges have you had with these chaebol, these large Korean conglomerates from making a decision? How does that decision-making tree work? Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
I think from working with large corporations, the type of partners that we work with, I guess we partner with more tech-forward companies in Korea as well. So I think they tend to have a little bit more of a tech angle, a little bit faster moving, maybe a little bit flatter of a structure. So we haven't really faced so much of having to navigate a very traditional type of org structure, at least for us.
Well, good for you. Okay.
Let me weigh in here maybe.
Okay,
for a
yeah,
second.
sure.
Not so much with the Korean chaebols, but being a corporate after all, right? One thing that would be my word of advice, and I think that's pretty simple, or pretty similar also with the Korean companies, Korean big corporates. They're very slow. We are very slow. So to really drive change, you need to find your internal champion that you can link your product to, that you can, that helps you overcome the internal obstacles. That must be somebody that's internally very well networked and does not necessarily have to be the highest level, nor should it probably be the lowest level, but that's something that I found extremely helpful in the past. With an internal champion, you can move through the ranks as long as this person has the internal credibility and can help you linking your product to the corporate.
So the next question is kind of a boring question, but I think a lot of people still have some curiosity about it. So starting with Ryan, can you talk about any challenges or issues in terms of working cross-border and from a regulatory perspective or from a government perspective? What kind of, what are the challenges that you faced when going cross-border and things like that?
Right. I think, for many startups' success, the government role can be crucial. And I'm personally very proud of the Korean government's all these various, startup supporting programs. I remember we have received office support, low interest rate loans and subsidies, and the Korean government even let us sell one of our products in one of their e-commerce sites in Korea, which was very, very helpful. I know that the Korean government is also has hosted, and is also hosting another one in Japan at the Korean embassy in Tokyo, where they invited several Korean startups so that they can pitch in front of Rakuten, in front of many other Japanese enterprises, Japanese VCs and medias. This is great. I mean, if you think about this from the startup's point of view, I mean, meeting with the CEO, the C-level folks from foreign companies, foreign enterprises, itself is a daunting task. So in the sense, I strongly believe the Korean government is doing a great job. And although, I think, although I don't think your focus as a businessman, startup man, to chase, your focus should not be chasing these startup programs, supporting programs by the government. Because I'm saying this because when I was running EastMob, I have seen so many startups, Korean startups, not one or two, many of them, whose major objective, business objective, is to win these government supporting programs. But it shouldn't be like that, right? Your goal should be like rock solid service, product, technology, or user base. So nevertheless, I highly recommend that you, all the startups, look out for any opportunities or any programs that suit your business needs and situations. It will be very helpful.
Thank you. Okay, Julian's turn.
Yeah, so I can really absolutely agree here with Ryan on this one, because we are sitting on the other side of the table usually during those kind of meetings. We actually work with Korean government entities, and they introduce to us startups based on our needs. So I can also absolutely only encourage you to join these kind of programs, because for us it's extremely helpful. It already gives us a lot of information in a very, very quick way. And then for you, it can be a door opener to really pitch in front of management level of big corporates like BMW, or to a whole cavalcade really of expert departments. For example, we will on 22nd of November have a pitch day where we selected together with a Korean partner startups that will pitch to literally everybody in BMW Group. And we do this time together with Korean, Chinese, and Japanese startups all at the same time as an APAC pitch day. And I'm really looking forward to this event.
Yeah. So for Beam, we have to talk to a lot of regulators in many different departments as a service that is very visible on the streets. With e-scooters, it's a new product. There's regulations around the vehicle, where it can be parked, safety regulations, who's allowed to ride, when you're allowed to ride, et cetera. And what we've learned is, the regulations in all countries, what's really important to understand is how sort of regulatory culture works. And something that we found that is unique for Korea is Korean government is actually very, very pro-business. And they want to do what is right to support startups to grow. We found the Korean government to be very supportive there. But it also has to be backed up with data and making sure that it's something that's good for society. It's also a country that's very sort of social pressure driven, which can make things grow very fast, but can also make things shrink very fast if things go the wrong way. So I think understanding those nuances is very, very important, and that's different in a lot of different countries. I would say one thing that is similar, and probably one of our biggest learnings from talking to governments, is not to think about government as one entity, but rather to think about government as individual people. When we talk to someone at the Ministry of Transport, or when we talk to someone in the Seoul City Council, we're actually talking to a person, and that person has an agenda. Whether it's they love e-scooters, they hate e-scooters, they like the environment, they get a lot of complaints about certain issues. They have a political agenda, and understanding a person and what drives them is really probably one of the keys for understanding how to lobby governments.
Yeah, and I'm sure Beam has a ton of experience with the governments and regulators and things like that. But props to Beam for being successful in Korea, and not only in Korea, but all the other countries that they're active in. So just moving on, for Ryan, my question is, can you give some kind of example of some kind of technology that you guys scouted? It could be several years ago or things like that, or maybe you could talk about, I guess, the company that you were running before. Why did Rakuten, Symphony, why did they first appeal, to that? What made them interested in that kind of technology? What was the issue that they couldn't solve internally? And then, why were the reasons why they adopted that technology and integrated that technology?
Oh, sure. Before EastMap was acquired by Rakuten, we actually, several years back, it's like 6-7 years from now, we also partnered with much bigger companies like Samsung Electronics, Samsung Galaxy, and a few other global conglomerates. And so, like, this acquisition didn't happen overnight, right? So we had gone through all these partnerships and collaboration with all these bigger companies. Back then, when we partnered with Samsung Galaxy, because one of the products we have developed is called Send Anywhere, a file transfer service. And back then, we had like 30 million users globally. And it's really hard to find a Korean startup that's servicing globally against so many users like that, like 40 million users. So and finally, we thought many other global companies, including Samsung Galaxy, we thought they lacked technology in terms of file transfer, data transfer. So we approached them, right? But these partnerships, acquisition, these are not easy. I want to stress this. But if you set your goal as, like, if you have a clear goal, and if you're with this unbreakable resiliency and persistency, these things will come pretty easily. So we have started meeting Samsung Galaxy, saying, we have proposed something like, okay, you can white label our products, and launch something like simple sharing from Galaxy Note 6, 7 for your next launch. So we have done that. We have done that so many times with Samsung Galaxy, also Samsung printers. So you need to have very rock solid service products, technology, or user base, and with unbreakable persistency, you will be achieving these goals pretty easily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so for Julian, what kind of technology? Just give us one example of a technology that you guys adopted, and tell us a reason why you guys adopted that.
So from Korea, there's quite a couple of relatively famous cases. Usually at this point, I would talk about, for example, Seoul Robotics, but I've talked about them a million times, so let me find another example. For example, there's a company called Protopie, and what they do is they enable designers to, as a no-code solution, to make easy mock-ups of user interfaces, also in a vehicle context, including hardware. Now, for our designers, that's usually a big challenge. You have the hardware that you need to steer, so mock-up steering wheels, mock-up gear shifts, mock-up displays. And you need to then make a very, very compelling user experience, but then you have to tell a programmer that you need to solve that issue, or that he needs to implement it the way that the designer has it in its head, in their head. So given that, we lost a lot of time in optimizing this flow between the two entities. Protopie helped us a lot and is now in daily use. This is one of the very quick transfers, for example, where they had a solution that immediately fit into our pipeline and needed only very, very little transformation and very, very little adaptation to fit to us.
Awesome. Thank you. Good example. And then so for Alan, can you give us an example of any technology, so from a technology partnership perspective, give us one example of an enterprise that you've partnered with from a tech perspective, and how that partnership came about.
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's a lot for Korea because Korea has a very localized tech ecosystem. So I think, for example, since Beam started in Singapore, and we actually couldn't operate in Singapore, the first two countries we were operating were actually Malaysia and Australia. Malaysia and Australia, while very different culturally, share a lot of similar of a tech ecosystem. So for example, from a mapping perspective, you can use Google Maps in both places. And we actually had our base layer of Beam's mapping system on a company called Mapbox. But with Mapbox in Korea, a lot of the localized points of interest, a lot of the subway exits, a lot of the small streets aren't exactly accurate. And so when we rolled out Beam at first in Korea on Mapbox, it became difficult to identify where you were. If it says, oh, your blue dot is here, but there's no actual POIs nearby, then it's really difficult for even a Korean person to understand, oh, I used to have this building here, but it's not on the map. Then it becomes very confusing. We actually integrated with Naver Maps just for the Korean market because it was so. We have, of other integrations too, like Kakao integrated as well. We have local payment gateway integrated as well. So we've gone pretty deep into the system to localize the Korean. Something very unique.
Well, I'm now. So obviously, you guys, for the audience, please feel free to contact any or all of us for any kind of follow-on. One thing I do want to mention is from a partner, you can meet a lot of partners according to the sheet here. Arena 2 is an area where you can meet with perspective, take some time to check. Then, like I said, feel free to contact all of us. We want to you guys if you have any startups, if you're operating a startup that could benefit or be mutually beneficial for all of us. Let's definitely, we want to continue the discussion. So thank you guys for coming out today, and please give a round of applause for the guys that are here with us.